Hey there, it's Michael. Welcome to Whole Again, the show that's here in support of you creating a meaningful life and the person you're becoming. And I'm excited to share a new series with you that will air this summer as America turns 250 years old, which is still pretty young relative to many other countries across this big blue marble that we all share. The series is called A Perfectly Imperfect Union. In 2022, I rode my bike across America, from Astoria, Oregon to the Lincoln Memorial. My wife drove our RV, and she had two co-pilots, Jester and Hope, two Springer Spaniels. And when we did it, America was coming out of the pandemic, and we were hurting from things that had happened prior to the pandemic. Of course, going through what we all went through. And at that time, and this is something I still believe today, is that we were entering an inflection point. An inflection point for us to hopefully pause, breathe, and reflect on who we wish to become as individuals, as communities, and as a country. As I pedaled across America, I wanted to share America's beauty with others, her natural beauty and the beauty of her people. And I also wanted to share where we were hurting. As America turns 250, I believe Kinstugi, which is something we use as a metaphor here at Whole Again, is a perfect metaphor for where we are as a country. There's so much beauty to celebrate, and we can also acknowledge that parts of us feel broken or are broken, but we can find a way to come back together, just like Kinstugi teaches us. And when we do, we don't try to erase or cover up where we have scars or blemishes. We highlight them in gold, and we celebrate them as symbols of our strength and resilience. Kinstugi is called the golden repair, and in essence, we can see beauty in something that's perfectly imperfect. During this series, I plan to speak to at least 2 people in each state and the District of Columbia. So 102 conversations with real folk, as I like to say. We're going to let the celebrities and the big influencers have their day somewhere else. But here, I want to reach out and talk to real people and listen to their reflections as they think about America turning 250 years old. And my hope is that you'll tune in to at least one, if not all 102. Because my theory going into this is that you'll hear different perspectives. Some may be aligned with yours. Others may not. But my hope is that you hear the goodness in your fellow citizens and realize, as Maya Angelou shared with us, we are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. We are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. I've had the privilege of traveling all over the world and all over this country. And this belief is something that I hold deep inside of me. So yes, I do believe that we are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. So if you're ready to meet one of your fellow neighbors, let's take a generous breath in and a releasing breath out and get to know Megan Cosgrove. Hey, Megan, thanks for joining me on this series, A Perfectly Imperfect Union between the two of us and our country. So I'm psyched to talk to you about your reflections of America as it turns 250 years old. So good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start here. Who the heck are you? And where do you come from? Like where did you grow up and where do you live now?
Yeah, perfect. So Megan Cosgrove. I grew up in Duluth, Minnesota, which is very on the northern side. People think that we're Canadian because of our accents. So you'll hear a lot of O's and boats and bags, the long O's. I moved to the Twin Cities in college to pursue college, and then I ended up staying here, got engaged, and I actually live in Hudson, Wisconsin. So we're essentially a suburb of the Twin Cities. Love it here. It's beautiful. We do get 4 seasons, so um, it makes it pretty exciting from a variety of perspectives. If you're an outdoorsy person, this is a great place to live, and that's exactly what I am. So I love this area.
Very cool. So the North Star, Minnesota, and the Badger State, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So I've been asking people if folks have never been to Wisconsin or been to Minnesota, because we live in a pretty big country and we don't really travel all that much, us Americans.
Hmm.
So what's something, since you mentioned two states, what is something special about Minnesota and Wisconsin that people might not know about? You mentioned they have 4 seasons. That's pretty cool. But what is something else that is special about Minnesota and Wisconsin?
So one thing, growing up in Minnesota, everyone is, and it says in our license plates, land of 10,000 lakes. Um, True. However, what's very interesting is Wisconsin actually has more lakes than that. So my husband, who's from Wisconsin, would constantly remind me of that. So um, that's one thing that's interesting. But I will say the Midwest doesn't try to impress you. It's exactly what makes it impressive, if that makes any sense. As I
Yes.
said, I grew up in Duluth on the North Shores of Lake Superior, now living in Hudson, on the St. Croix River. I'm drawn to water. I mean, we have it all around us. But the corner of this country is really stunning in a way that sneaks up on you. Lakes everywhere, trails that reward patience, winters that teach you something about toughness, whether you're signed up for the lesson or not. But more than the land, it's the people. So there's something genuinely grounding about growing up in a place where people work hard, show up for one another, and don't make a lot of noise about it. So that's really unique. You'll find that about anyone that you meet in this area. The Midwest raised me to believe that character is built in the long, unglamorous middle of things, not at the finish line. So, not in the highlight reel, in the miles nobody sees. So, that lesson has followed me into my career, into motherhood, and into every race and every hard season of life. So,
Very cool. I love that. There is something special about the Midwest and the people of the Midwest. I grew up in upstate New York, really Western New York, so it's more Midwesty than New York
hmm
City-y, if
hmm
that's
hmm
that's not even a word, but the vibe is very Midwestern, and it's just like good
Sure.
people, like, solid, will be there for you,
hmm hmm
regardless of how you see the world. It's like the good, stable structure. I love that.
hmm
Now, you did mention, you slipped this in, that your husband's from Wisconsin. Doesn't Minnesota and Wisconsin have a bit of a rivalry when it comes to
Oh,
like
yeah.
sports? So I hope the household is calm. Or
Well,
maybe it's not during those big football games between Wisco and Minnesota.
yeah, what's interesting is so we've got 2 children and the house is essentially divided. So I always tell my son he was born in Minnesota and so by default he has to be a Vikings fan. We're Twins fans. We do like the Brewers, but we're closer. We can go see the Twins more conveniently. And obviously we're closer to the Vikings. My husband is a diehard Packer fan. My daughter's a diehard Packer fan. I just like watching sports. And so if
Sure.
I get the opportunity, I go wherever. I cheer on for whoever, but I definitely have one Viking t-shirt and a few Packers t-shirts. So
Very,
it's
very cool.
it's a what we try to do is the times when the Vikings are winning, I'm saying, hey, you know what, Packers, you got to show up.
Absolutely. Well, you give us hope that in a country that feels divided and is divided in many ways, that you can cohabitate, you know,
Hmm.
Viking fans and Packer fans, Twins fans and Brewers fans. We can make this work. So, one question I'm asking people, if you were around a big table, a big picnic table, maybe in the summertime, either in Minnesota or Wisconsin, and the people around you who you love, family, friends, you're all talking about, today's times, and they ask you, What does America mean to you?" How would you respond to that?
Yeah. So what's interesting? It's a very loaded question. But I'd probably say something like America feels like mile 11 and a half marathon. And I preface a half marathon because I don't do anything full. Okay. And not because it's half. I just, that's where my comfort is. So
Sure,
I
yeah.
always,
Well, a half is still a huge accomplishment. Let's just
yeah,
put that on the table right
it's
there.
a fun thing. But I'd say, yeah, America feels like mile 11 and a half marathon or a bike mile 45 of a 70.3 Ironman. You're past the easy part. You're not yet at the finish. Everything hurts. You're questioning your choices. And the only thing that gets you through the training you did before you got there is the belief that the finish line is still worth reaching. Okay. So growing up in Duluth, you learn early that the elements don't care about your feelings. The lake doesn't soften you. The winter doesn't shorten because you're tired. You learn to embrace it. And there's something deeply American about that to me. The freedom to choose hard things, the audacity to believe the finish line exists, it creates optimism. So the stubborn, sometimes irrational conviction that the efforts the effort is worth it. I felt that on every long ride, every open water swim, every physical or mental climb I've thought might break me. And I feel it when I think about this country. So the potential is real, the effort is required.
Yeah, we're in the muddy part, just like
Yeah.
in the last few miles, and we feel it. And the thought bubble in our head is like, do we quit or do we, keep pedaling? And so I love that notion that we're like in it. It's hard, but hey, you know what? We can do hard things, which I totally believe in. And I should note for those listening, you're a big cyclist and triathlete, and I just love the inspiration that you share on LinkedIn. That's where we got connected. Your posts like really bring out a lot of optimism and hope, and I just love that you're putting that into into the universe. So when you think about tension, though, obviously we live in times that are tough. You mentioned that the tension of the 11th mile of a half marathon. So, where do you see the biggest tension between like where we are today and what you think America can become, what she can become?
No, that's a good question. So the tension I feel most around is access. So in endurance sports, I'm going to keep referring to that because that's kind of how I position everything in my life. In endurance sports, I know that everyone gets to the starting line with the same equipment, essentially. Okay, the same training, essentially, and the same support crew. And that matters. It shapes outcomes before the gun goes off. I think America talks a lot about what happens after the start, but not enough about what it takes to get there in the first place. So I grew up in a working class city. Duluth is tough. It's beautiful and honest about what life costs. And I think that upbringing gave me a lens that's hard to shake. So we celebrate the finish line with a lot of passion and not enough honesty about who never made it to the starting line and why. And the tension sits with me, it pushes me, and I think it's one of the most important conversations we should be having right now.
I love that. Because it takes so much to actually get to the start line. Like it
Hmm.
takes
Oh, yeah.
courage and a whole bunch of work. The thing is that we put up the images of people crossing the finish line, but rarely do we, yeah, take a snapshot of like towing the line and actually starting, and all the unseen work that gets us there. And
Mhm.
And some people, to your point, don't have access to actually even get to the starting line, right? And so,
Right.
so this might be the thing that you want to talk about further. It could be something else. When you think about repairing something, and so I use kintsugi as a metaphor for my Whole Again podcast. So it's that golden repairing of the Japanese pottery. So is there something that you wish you could repair? Maybe not perfectly, because this is the Perfectly Imperfect Union series,
Yeah.
but repair it in a meaningful way that you think can help America get closer to that ideal?
Yeah. So I'd repair a relationship with shared struggle. Okay. So right now we've
Mm,
sorted ourselves out into groups that don't suffer together anymore.
mm,
We don't share the same risks, the same hard seasons, the same long miles. And when you stop struggling alongside someone, it becomes very easy to stop seeing them. So in endurance sports, something real happens when you're deep in the race next to a stranger. You're both hurting. You push each other with a lot of nods, sometimes words, and sometimes without a word at all. You cross the finish line and you mean it when you shake their hand. So that shared suffering creates something lasting. It's respect, recognition, and humanity. So the Midwest taught me a version of that too. You show up for your neighbor when they need to be shoveled out, or keep an eye on their house when they're out of town, not because you agree on everything, but because that's what you do. Okay. And I think it has a lot to do with my upbringing as well, not just where I'm from. So I think we've lost some of that as a country, and I think we can get back to it, but it requires actually showing up in the same space and doing hard things together again.
yeah, I agree. Those moments in races where you don't even know the person, you don't know
Yeah.
what they believe in, if they pray, who they pray to, who they voted for, who they love, like how much money they make. All you know is that they're suffering too. And
Hmm.
there's a bond that comes from that. And to your point, yeah, just suffering together that can bring us closer. So
Absolutely.
I love that notion. Well, with any birthday, you got to put the candles in the cake and blow out the candles. And of course, we make a wish.
Hmm.
So this year we will blow out 250 candles. So, what's the wish you have for America as we blow out the candles on our birthday cake?
So I think my deepest wish is that we learn to love the long game again.
Mm,
Okay. We're a culture obsessed with speed. Okay. Fast results, fast takes, fast wins. But the things worth building, a life, a community, a country, they don't come from sprinting. They come from showing up when it's hard, from putting in the miles nobody sees, from trusting that slow, steady progress in the right direction. It matters even more when the pace feels brutal. Okay. I think about Lake Superior. It didn't carve that shoreline overnight. So it
yeah.
took patience and persistence and relentless quiet force. That's the energy I want for this country. Okay, 250 years is not old for a nation. We're still in the middle
No.
miles.
Yes.
But my wish is that we stop looking for shortcuts and start trusting the training. Okay, that we raise kids who know how to be uncomfortable and keep going. That we become a country that finishes things with integrity and not just speed. And so that's the America I want to hand to my children.
That's great. That's a great wish. Yeah. When you go overseas, if you go to Europe and you're
Hmm.
like, or even go to Asia and some societies in Asia, you're like, oh, that's old. We're not that
Yeah.
old. We're still, sometimes we're like a bratty teenager. I don't know. So,
Right, right.
so,
Yeah, exactly.
so what kind of cake are we eating, Megan? Like, what's your
Oh,
favorite birthday
you
cake?
know what? Um, I think we're going with marble.
Marble. All right. I love that.
Yep, with
I love that.
a whipped frosting for sure. I
Oh,
flavor not probably not chocolate. I think it's gonna be like a vanilla whipped.
all
Yeah.
right. I like that. That sounds pretty tasty. So we'll end here. So each time I sit down with a fellow citizen, I
Mhm.
ask that person a question, and then they also have a chance to ask the next person that comes on the series a question. So the question you get from the last person who was on is if you could go anywhere in the country that you haven't been before
Mm.
for a trip, a vacation, what have you, where would it be?
Oh, I've been to quite a few places, but I have not been to Maine yet. I would
Ah,
love to go to Maine. I've looked at a few Ironmans up there, but I'm going to probably do a North Carolina Ironman, which I've not been to North Carolina, but it really wasn't on my bucket list. But Maine is definitely on my bucket list.
Maine's a great state, and so is North Carolina. So Maine, yeah, Maine is beautiful, and it changes dramatically, like from the area right near, like as you get next to Massachusetts and suburbs of Boston, all the way up the coast to just like the intersection between the U.S. and Canada. It's
Hmm.
beautiful. So I hope that happens. So
Yeah.
well, you get to ask a fellow citizen a question. So what question would you like to ask the next person that comes on this series?
So I would like to ask them what truly motivates you and how has that motivation evolved over time?
That's a good one.
And that's a pretty broad, that can be anything
That could be
from
anything.
career
Yeah.
to life to parenthood to siblinghood to, to child, whatever.
Absolutely. Cool. I like that question. Yeah, awesome. Well, Megan, thanks for joining me on our Perfectly Imperfect series as we celebrate America's 250th. And I will say, because I know you'll get this, keep pedaling. And I appreciate you.
All right. Thank you so much, Michael.
I love Megan's wish, the long game, for us to fall in love with the long game once again. Nowadays, it seems like everyone wants a quick fix, but the long game, that's where the magic happens. That's when we create things that last, that are strong. Taking a long game approach allows us to have another 250 years as a country. Of course, I think we all know that if we really want to come together, it will take more than just wishing. It will take action. And maybe that action starts with a conversation that allows us to be fully seen, heard, and appreciated, or I would say loved. One human to another, even if we don't see the world the same way. I believe that 97% of people are good. There's a like-heartedness in that goodness. And if we lead with our heart, we can be open to different mindedness. That's how we can come together and form a more perfectly imperfect union. If today's conversation resonated with you, I hope you'll share it with someone you know. And if either you or someone you know would like to join me for a conversation, please reach out. And until our next episode in our Perfectly Imperfect Union series, let's remember to celebrate our scars as golden symbols of our strength and resilience. Happy birthday, America. And don't forget to have fun storming the castle. And if you wish to learn more about creating beautiful ripples and how to prevent a bad moment from turning into a bad day, please visit my website, michaelobrienshift.com, and sign up for my newsletter called The Ripple Effect. And join us each Monday, Wednesday, and Friday here at Whole Again and discover how you can heal, grow, and become more resilient. And celebrate our scars as golden symbols of strength and resilience. Until then, remember, you can always come back to your breath. You've got this, and we've got you.